Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay. Hello, Tater. Hello, Ain't No Hollow Back Gal. Christina. Do we have a full roll call? Troy. Hello, everybody. Just us chickens in here today. I know I put this up late. Wanted to talk about Karen Reed and her public mask. And, you know, we heard so many witnesses in this case talk about how they liked Karen Reed, especially in the first trial. And I think the point, you know, also not just in the trial, they were saying we all liked Karen Reed. Also, when they were being interviewed, they were saying, oh, we liked her. And I think, you know, publicly they thought this was a great plan because it would show that, you know, nobody had anything against Karen. Nobody was pinning it on the girl as Yannetti and Jackson were trying to push, and Karen Reed herself that would push. The life was so unfair that everything was happening to Karen Reed unfairly. But the problem with that is that as they're watching this behavior, and I think it's an important time to talk about public mass, as they're watching this behavior, Karen Reed go through her trial as the happiest murder defendant and watching her spearhead an innocence fraud campaign and a witness harassment campaign, that they're having some difficulty recognizing that they were fooled, that the Karen Reed that presented themselves to them was certainly not the real Karen Reed. And I think it would have been certainly much more effective testimony if Carrie Roberts or Jen McCabe had said, look, I was fooled by her. Certainly I was presented, especially Jen McCabe. Have we ever seen any evidence of Karen Reed's health history, real health history? I mean, excuse me for being skeptical, but this is the same woman who told Brian Higgins that she had 10 surgeries related to her colon cancer, and she was presented to the court as having, by Yannetti in her bail hearing, as having a brain tumor. You know, these are strangely, did she concoct these illnesses to kind of masquerade as, you know, for first to be like, in some ways, how do I put this? To be like or to re-traumatize John O'Keefe. So his sister, Kristen, died of a brain tumor. Now she has a brain tumor. Oh, your friend Jen McCabe has MS? I have MS. Oh, your dad died of colon cancer? I had colon cancer. I had 10 surgeries. Was this her way of gaining sympathy, to get high status, to get lots of sympathy and become likable by putting herself in the victim role, to gain power and control over the people she was around. But instead we heard, oh, she was hysterical instead of she was acting hysterical. I mean, are these witnesses going to figure out that this was an act by the time we get to the testimony in the second trial, in the civil trial is what I'm talking about? This was an act. There was no need to go get Jen McCabe or Michael Camerano. I mean, that was her first pick. Michael Camerano, then Catherine Camerano. They weren't available. So then she went to Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe. There was no need to involve them. She could have just called 911 herself, or gone to where she last saw John, where she hit him, where she reversed into him, and called 911. But if she had done that, if she had not mixed in other personalities with human frailties, because we all have human frailties, there would be no human frailties to exploit. There would be no other characters in this. And it would be hard for Karen Read to spin an alternative narrative that she didn't know what she did. I mean, even people on this side were saying she got so drunk, she may have blacked out. She may have not known she hit him. She clearly knew she hit him. She's saying he's dead. He was hit by a plow. I mean, she may have gotten the idea that she hit him by a plow as she's looking at plows plowing the road as she's driving in that area. But I thought it was a very, very big tell when she said he didn't look mortally wounded. To me, that was an admission in the negative. But I was just thinking about how all these convicted killers and accused killers, their personality is so alike that it comes with, if we go through the psychopathic playlist, it comes with psychopathy and the narcissism that's always attached to psychopathy. So all psychopaths are also narcissists. So great. They always want to tell you about how they were done wrong, how they were treated badly by the police, but they never want to talk about the victim, the victim's family, the suffering that they caused. They just sort of only deal with the very surface of life. And the slick, and the ways that they can manipulate and control the public narrative to make themselves the victim and to ghost the victim altogether. So I was looking at this footage. So Jeffrey McDonald is a very famous true crime case in America, probably one of the biggest cases. And he killed February 1970, he killed his pregnant wife, Colette McDonald, and his two daughters, Kimberly and Kristen. And he was supported by Colette's mother and her stepfather very much. And one of the first, hints that anything was wrong with this guy is when he went on Dick Cavett, which was a big talk show at the time. I mean, we're really going, this is before I was born. So, we're going back. This case, some crime happened before I was born. But if you look at the footage of Jeffrey McDonald, I'm going to show it in a second, of Jeffrey McDonald on Dick Cavett, it is so close to Karen Read. I mean, you cannot not think of Karen Read and the way that she dealt with the media, the way she acted. Remember, she couldn't make it sincere enough. She just somehow couldn't make it sincere enough. Right? I did not hit John with my car. I can't make it sincere enough. And she's smiling, duping delight. Here's Jeffrey McDonald on Dick Cavett. Let's just take a quick look at this rundown of the case and quick look at him on Dick Cavett. The police. I mean, where have we seen this all before with Karen Reed, right? And blame it on the police. Very similar. So, you know, when we go to, let's look at Carrie Roberts, her interview very quickly on Good Morning America, just a quick snippet of this. Check out her description. So instead of saying Karen Reed was acting hysterical, she invited me in to use me to deflect attention away from herself and to use me as a potential alternative suspect, because Carrie Roberts was emotionally traumatized. She was a good witness for the defense to exploit. Her memory wasn't as solid as Jen McCabe. So Jen McCabe became the strongest witness. So who became public enemy number one? Jen McCabe. She should have been a suspect herself. She should really be in prison. I mean, how many times we had two different witnesses, expert witnesses. It's science, guys. I'm gonna do a free Karen Reed talking point. It's science, guys. Debunk the 227 phone search. Happened due to Karen Reed asking her to Google how long to die in the cold, because Karen Reed doesn't make any evidence herself. She always uses other people to throw it in the mix and confuse things. I didn't look up how long to die in the cold. Jen, you look it up. You call 911. So listen to Carrie Roberts describing Karen Reed's demeanor and her actions that morning of January 29, 2022.
Snowy, you couldn't see. And as we were driving, Karen would lean in between us and she was frantic. I mean, she knew John was missing, so she was frantic about it, as I would be. And then we turned to pull down Fairview.
She was acting frantic. She wasn't frantic. She knew where he was. Carrie, she led you right to her. No one else saw her. It was all an act. The real Karen Reed is the one joking and smiling and smirking through the autopsy pictures. That's the real Karen Reed. You know, she criminally got away with it. But is it going to be way after the civil case when these witnesses wake up and realize they were fooled? That's what I've been thinking about. I don't know about you.
And she saw him on the lawn, and I didn't.
Carrie quickly joins Karen on the lawn, and the two women perform.
It's not only you didn't, Jen McCabe didn't, and no one could see past their hand, practically their hand in front of their face that day. You could barely see anything. Look at the vision out of the. She recognizes John under a pile of snow because she knew where she hid him. She knew where she left him. The alcohol doesn't touch the sides with Karen Reed. So I wanted to go through my interview. Someone who is waking up and is publicly saying he's fooled is Brendan Kane. He may be returning to this podcast. He may be returning. May happen. And I just wanted to go, that's someone who's John O'Keefe's friend since childhood. Thought we'd go through his interview today with me. Thought it was enlightening. I played it, I've clipped it on my channel, but I've never gone through it with you guys. So thought that we'd do it together today. Welcome, Brendan Kane.
Good morning, Roberta. How are you?
Great. So, so for people who don't know, how did you meet John O'Keefe?
Yes, Johnny and I grew up together, actually on the same street in a suburb of Boston called Braintree, where we went to school together our entire lives, from nursery school up through high school. Johnny went to Northeastern. I went away to school in upstate New York. We remained close all through college, through adulthood, wherever I lived. I lived in New York for a number of years, lived in Los Angeles for a number of years. Wherever I was, Johnny would come visit. Was just one of those consistent, I was very lucky to have a consistent childhood friend for over 40 years.
And what was he like?
Johnny was, first and foremost, hilarious. I mean, all the memories, whether it's selective or not, are just us laughing about things stupid and serious. But, you know, people describe Johnny usually the same way. He was unbelievably athletic. He was a little bit older. He's a December baby, so he had like 7 or 8 months on most of us. So he was taller than most of us. As we grew up, he always kept the height advantage. But he's a really, really good basketball player. He's a good soccer player, a good baseball player. He's just one of those kids that was just good at anything he did. But you know, even non-organized sports, we'd play. We'd have kind of your prototypical suburban activities, a lot of street hockey, a lot of wiffle ball in the backyards in our neighborhood. But always just, these are back in the days where it was come home when the street lights come on. And that's what we...
There's the thing, you know, there's John O'Keefe, who always wanted to be a police officer, never wanted to be anything else, and was good at everything he put his mind to or tried. It's hard to think that he's going to be the one who's going to be murdered by his psychopathic girlfriend or be in a relationship with someone who would have control over him. I mean, he seemed like, especially with his neatness, like someone who had it all together. I mean, and also COVID helped with that too, you know. By the time that, you know, Karen, we're going to talk about it a little bit further, but, you know, everybody was staying away due to COVID. So this relationship bloomed in isolation mostly.
did, you know, all summer.
So I saw you, you know, you were on camera a little bit on Court TV, and I thought, oh my gosh, another hearing. I mean, what is this like from, you know, that ridiculous verdict to be back in the courtroom again with Karen Reed? Were you expecting her to walk in with her herd of lawyers?
Yeah, we had heard rumblings. She had an enormous team. The experience overall was the equivalent of being forced to watch a sequel to a movie and you hated the original movie. So the kind of the surrealness of walking back in there, and you know, we've had a gap between the verdict and this 3-4 months where it's been really kind of nice getting back to.
I would say it's so much worse than a movie you didn't like. I think there's the trauma of it. There's the way that you push it away from. It feels unreal that you're at your friend's murder trial that you went to twice, and now you're back again at the civil trial. But the trauma just doesn't go away. I mean, it's much worse than I would think watching a movie. I mean, that was John's line. It's only a movie. It's only a movie. Like, I guess he told himself when things got really bad to sort of stay in control of his emotions and disassociate. But to fully take in the horror that this woman has made herself rich and famous off of her murder of your friend is horrific.
Normal, just being able to kind of focus on the family and not allowing people that have victimized us to take more of our time. And now somehow I'm sitting back in a courtroom to support the family with the person that killed my friend sitting 5 feet away and her army of attorneys. So it's hard to describe. It doesn't, honestly, just surreal doesn't do it justice. It's just not normal.
Did you ever think that this would be did you ever think that you'd be doing something like this? I mean,
no, gosh, no. I mean, bad things happen to people, good people every day. But this one I think's a little bit different. It wasn't just the loss of a phenomenal brother, son, friend. It's the pain that came with everything that was created by the murderer, after she killed Johnny.
And so what Alan Jackson sitting there, were her supporters there? Was Turtle Boy there? What was the atmosphere like in front of the courthouse?
Yeah, so I did get a little bit of a different vibe than Dedham. The Dedham courthouse, everyone always described it as like a very old, historical building. It's not a nice building inside. It's old. The Plymouth facility that we're at yesterday, much newer. Everything was clean. I did see that they brought at least 2 of the court officers over from Plymouth that were familiar with the circus. The thing that I don't know what I was expecting driving down there.
You mean from Denham? They brought them over from Denham to Plymouth?
Yeah. Denham. Yeah. So there's one guy in particular. So I don't know if that's just a normal court officer rotation or if they did that intentionally. But, driving down there, I didn't really know what to expect. It's like, this is a civil case. I mean, I can kind of understand how a cult could get behind supporting somebody in a criminal case because their freedom is at stake. But as I pulled into the parking lot and there's 40 or 50 people outside there to support what? Karen keeping her money? I'm not exactly sure.
Well, Karen's pled poor, and I mean, she says she's poor, and I was thinking about why she's living in her parents' house. So obvious. I mean, a little bit like OJ. I wouldn't be surprised if she moves to Florida for this reason. It seems like she wants to be around her psychopathic, deranged father. I don't know if he's deranged. He's dangerous for sure. Father, Daddy Reed. But why she's living with her parents? So obvious why she's living with her parents. Because she sold her house and she wants to say that she has no assets. What she's done with that film money and that book money on her story, LOL, on her made up fantastical story, little like Amanda Knox's fantastical story that she just spun on Hulu. It's so outrageous. I got to talk about that very soon. Boy, that's over the top and just one lie after the next. But it's because she doesn't want to, what she's done with it, I would think, is since the finance professor, the adjunct finance professor, I'm sure has hid her money away in a way that if there's a judgment against her, so if she wins a judgment in this civil case, they can't take her house. They can't take her. I mean, that's why you would move to Florida, is because the laws are very good. That's why OJ moved to Florida, because the laws are very good for civil criminal defendants who have judgments against them. You're convicted civilly. She doesn't want any of her money taken away from her. So I'm sure she has hid her money. But my point is, I'm sure she's hidden her money and moved her money around in a way so if they come after her for money, she's going to cry poor. Because everything that she attains can be possessed by the O'Keeffes if she loses civilly. That's also why she's looking. We haven't seen any of those. Hold on one second. Sorry, I just had a cough. So we haven't seen any of those civil suits that she's promised against Proctor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the problem with saying, violating your rights. I mean, I guess maybe you could say Proctor violated her rights by sharing details of her case to his friends. I mean, maybe. But she's also, this is what her lawyer says, her South African lawyer, Siegelman, isn't that his name? Wants to sue Buchanan, et cetera, for that same thing, violation of rights. But I mean, usually it has to do with false imprisonment. When you get acquitted of a charge like this. And she was convicted of OUI, so they had every right to put her in jail. So I don't know where exactly she's going with all those lawsuits. It has been 2+ weeks, and we have seen neither head nor tails of them. So maybe that was just a bluff. I have no idea. Are they coming? Are they not coming? Is Karen Read working on them? I have no idea. Her and her 7 lawyers working on them. I would think that she's looking to pick up. I mean, this is the end of the innocence fraud grift. It's where you sue civilly everyone who's got you and tried to hold you accountable for your crime and claim that you were wrongfully accused and walk away with or wrongfully convicted, in her case, wrongfully accused, and walk away with a big multi-million-dollar civil payout. But does she even want to do that? Because parts of that, if she loses this, then judgment goes to the O'Keefes. I mean,
that
a big piece of it goes to the O'Keefes.
Well, it's the free Karen Read can't be the motto anymore. I'm not exactly sure what they're saying. I've kind of intentionally ignored most of what of what they've said over the last 3 or 4 months. I don't really care. We lost in criminal court. We don't get another bite of the apple. So I've tried to kind of mentally come to the acceptance phase on that piece. But to see these people taking time, I mean, I had to request time off to be able to go to support my murdered friend's family. But there's 40 or 50 people with nothing else to do but go to a civil trial on behalf of a woman that wouldn't speak to them if she had never murdered Johnny.
Wow. Yeah. Is she a kind of snobby person, personally, or you think is it? I mean, why do you say she wouldn't speak to them?
They're beneath her. They're beneath her. She. I mean, you can. She was high end or high maintenance, however you want to look at it. But she was big on brands and labels and style and fashion. And I mean, you could take the best example is in the first trial, Johnny's niece intentionally wore a pair of sunglasses on the stand, and at first I didn't know what she was doing. And as it turns out, there were like $600 sunglasses that Karen left behind when she fled the murder scene. So, again, $600 sunglasses, great if you can do it. But that to me kind of epitomizes, she fancies herself to be kind of a higher echelon, higher societal.
So Turtle Boy tried to spin a narrative, as always, with this and say that the family and or Brendan Kane. So if you're tuning in late, we're listening to my interview with John O'Keefe's friend from childhood till when he was murdered, 40 years of friendship, Brendan Kane. And so this is the narrative that Turtle Boy tried to spin. So he just talked about how Kaylee, John O'Keefe's niece, wore Karen Read sunglasses on her head when she testified in the first trial because she's, as a teenager, that testimony, because she was a minor, was hidden from the public. We only got reports of what she said via the news. And I think some of the audio was leaked and then removed, I believe. But that was something that it was a teenage-ish move that you do when you're an angry teenager and you've been traumatized, losing your mother so young, then your father, then your uncle gets murdered. And the woman who does it is your uncle's girlfriend, who you watched her give you the silent treatment. She ran hot and cold. She tried to buy your affection, various gifts. That was a source of argument. John O'Keefe tried to kick her out of the home right before he was killed. Karen wouldn't leave, insisted on staying. John O'Keefe was telling her that the relationship had run its course. And even in the last text messages between them, he's saying, I'm just not into fighting. We've been fighting all the time for months now. It's enough.
Figure even before she got all the notoriety she's received from this event.
Yeah, and back to all these supporters, they're happy to line her pocket. She's always crying poor, but most of these lawyers I would think, are working pro bono for her. I would think.
I mean,
do we know?
I have no idea. I mean, it's just for the visibility, for the promotional value of being on that team. I mean, frankly, it was borderline comical as the lawyers introduced themselves in front of that judge yesterday, where when it got to the 6th and 7th lawyers, even they couldn't not smile, because on behalf of Miss Reed, then that there was 2 extra lawyers that came and fit at the table that were in the front row, the front pew, if you will. That when they were introducing themselves like with a smile, like even we realize how ridiculous this is. That's what I got out of it.
And were you surprised? I mean, just going back quickly to the criminal trial, were you surprised that her behavior was just never called out? The eye rolling, the kind of smiling and laughing. Even, I mean, I think the New York Post called it out when she was looking at the autopsy pictures. She was smirking through them. I mean, are you surprised that she still has so many supporters after the way she behaves in court? I mean, I am.
I don't know if I'm surprised, just because I'm not sure what to expect out of society these days, to be honest. There's always going to be a subset of folks that are looking to fill their time. The way I've always looked at that is this notion of a third place, that people need a third place to have a complete life. And some people join a book club, and some people do recreational basketball. This is this group of people's third place, and it's a very low barrier to entry. It's put on a pink shirt and hold a sign, and you're part of a club. So from that perspective, but a place to find belonging. It's a strange place to find belonging, but I guess I can try to guess what the psychology is there.
And also, you never. I mean, because we're bound by the facts; they never change. But with this, it's the conspiracy mindset is a part of innocence fraud, and they can keep going with these theories for forever with very little evidence. They'll never come to anything. They can test all these items and get incomplete. I mean, this is what the thing I've noticed about innocence fraud campaigns is they go on forever because they can go a zillion different directions, and it constantly can keep their mind preoccupied and off their boring life. So they'll test items that they're totally unrelated to the crime or that they know are irrelevant, and they find some DNA and they'll go down that on that DNA, forever, trying to look for the match, or they'll use incomplete DNA and say that's proof of an alternative suspect, meaning it'll never be matched to anyone because there's not enough markers. I mean, this manipulation, the Innocence Project was started by Barry Schecht after he was a lawyer defending O.J. Simpson, and he recognized that no one really understood DNA, that it seemed like such strong proof of an alternative suspect, so that if the DNA wasn't there in a murder case, often the killer doesn't leave DNA. It's not a guarantee that you're going to leave DNA at the scene, or that you'll leave or DNA at the scene is related to the murder. But the public doesn't think that way. They think any DNA found at the scene is going to be related to the murder, or it has some kind of timestamp. It just does not work that way. So he realized that he could grift using DNA, and that's how the Innocence Project started. And you'd have to really, I encourage everyone to dig into the trial transcripts of the cases that they represent and look at these cases for yourself. That one is more guilty than the next. Kind of conspiracy that's just around. It's like a constant dangling carrot in front of a donkey. The conspiracy will be solved any minute now, just any minute, and we heard in this case, the feds are coming. And then when the feds weren't coming, Karen Reed sort of had to prop them up and say, no, they're really coming. They're just lying about it. They're really coming. Oh no, it is closed. They found nothing. But maybe that's a conspiracy in itself. They covered that up. It's a cover up on a cover up on a cover up. I mean, it's going forever on this.
Yeah, it's perpetual. It's just with a little bit more of your financial support, we might be able to finally solve this. It's a grift. It's a grift, and frankly, I've learned a lot about this topic listening to you. This is clearly my first experience with innocence fraud. I happen to hit really close to home the first time I have dealt with it. I'm still kind of processing some of it, frankly. But yeah, it is they can keep this going for a very, very long time, and evidenced by some of the statements made by her counsel in court yesterday. They intend to keep it going in a very specific manner. So
I'll get to that in a second. But did you see the film of Alan Jackson running around? So before we get into Alan Jackson in the basement, when another sort of an odd talking point that people use to make excuses for the amount of innocence fraud media we have in this country is they'll say, and even I used to say it myself, I don't say it anymore, is that it's not a very good story, is that guy accused of the crime did it, end of story, and he got convicted. It's a much more exciting story. A guy accused, convicted of a crime, didn't do it. But I really, these innocence fraudsters, it doesn't matter how much media has been created. So they'll say, well, there's only one way you can go, is that, he's already been convicted, and we've heard all the, read all the journalism about how he's guilty, so you have to go another way. No, it doesn't matter how many people have already written their own innocence fraud narrative. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you have, how many documentaries do we have on the West Memphis 3 over and over and over again, going in different angles? People can't get enough of this. It's like, I always say, it's like crack to Americans. They cannot get enough of it. The idea. So it's Making a Murderer 1, Making a Murderer 2, new documentary on Adnan Syed. We've had a documentary on Amanda Knox, and then Amanda Knox is going to write her own movie script, and we're going to get an actress to act out her fantastical imaginings based on what really happened to him. It's so far from the truth, just one lie after the next. So it's because it's the money side of this. It's the ideal. We love the idea that our justice system is so unfair, that that big mistakes are happening all the time. Our media can't wait to just put this out. It's not that psychopaths walk amongst us. We're happy to admit that there's serial killers and maybe like this very small element of very, very dark people that, just are killers, and there's something really off and dark, but not the person with the mask, with the public mask. Not the, what are the chances? They like to say, oh, this person's always maintained their innocence. Yeah, like every other guilty killer. How many killers stand up and say, I did it, and throw themselves on the mercy of the court that get huge innocence, get huge media attention? Not many. Not many. I mean, we watched when Koberger, quieted down, was when he said, I did it. Before that, we had a dozen YouTube channels talking about, how he didn't do it. Now it's like they want to put him in this category of a kind of serial killer now to keep selling this. But we don't like the idea that these people, these dark personalities, these psychopaths, walk amongst us and fool us. That's not the narrative we like. Is it too scary? I don't know. Around the basement of 34 Fairview, and they're going to, pull up the carpets here. There's this, there's that. They're running around. I mean, they can grift off that for forever. I mean, the DNAing the carpet. I mean, what we like to think is that there's some kind of like specific DNA, but I mean, we leave DNA everywhere, So, I mean, they can keep looking for this for forever. So back to yesterday. So very early into the hearing, I won't force anyone we went over it twice yesterday. I think that's more than enough. But yesterday, very early on into the hearing, Karen Reid's South African lawyer announces that they want to join in all these people. And Karen Reid is actually the victim. She's not the defendant. She wants to be a plaintiff in this, and she wants to sue a list as long as your arm of people. What was your reaction to that moment in court?
And nothing they do surprises me at this point. My theory on it, as I was sitting there listening to it, was just kind of more Alan Jackson type style, that they're trying to intimidate these people from doing anything in this case, or to try to confuse the situation, misdirection yet again. Let's combine this with a basic a civil trial, and here's how we're going to do it. To me, it's again perpetuating that grift and making innocent people the villains in their mind. From what I have not been over to Canton recently, but from what I understand, they still stand in front of the police station every Friday with signs, and they still harass that the Chris Albert's pizza joint on like Thursday nights. I think they stand across the street with signs. It's shocking that these folks have nothing else to do, what the actual motivation is. But as you had surmised, it has continued.
Yeah, it's not going to be over anytime soon. This, as long as people are still talking about Karen Reid, this grift will go on and go on and go on. Sometimes they go on for decades and decades. I mean, we started out this episode talking about Jeffrey McDonald. It really didn't end till 2018 when the Supreme Court said he couldn't argue anymore. 2017, 2018, around then, couldn't argue anything more. But Karen Reid, we're just at the beginning of this. We have the book to come out, the movie to come out, the civil trial. This is not dying down. So, I talk about public mass at a time when people are waking up to Aidan Carney. And some people are seeing him for the manipulative, psychopathic liar that he is. And others, as he's, trying to distract attention from his lies. He said there was no tape. He didn't tape Karen Reed. He's calling the people that said that he did tape Karen Reed's his phone calls with Karen Reed a liar. Bring the phone call. Then the phone call clips are leaked, and now he's making other people the scapegoat to distract attention away from his lies. Something he may have learned from Karen Reed. That's certainly the way she did her defense. Let's look at Jen McCabe. Let's look at the Alberts. Let's look at Brian, and then Brian Higgins in the second trial. She's never even really a suspect. Carrie Roberts became, for a minute and a half, a suspect. Isn't it interesting? I'll say it again, that Karen Reed, who claims she's been falsely accused of this crime, isn't looking for the real killer. She knows it's a joke. First, if you watch the introduction, she said she knows who did it. Then they don't know who did it. But she's not curious. She's not looking to get justice. They always say they're about justice for John O'Keefe. They're not looking to. She's not looking. She's busy selling her life rights and her story to Hollywood and to the publishing world. 0% of her time has been spent trying to, quote unquote, solve this crime, because she knows it is solved. She knows she's responsible. She just has to fish out this idea that it's someone else. But she'll have these free Karen readers. They're going to be the last people to figure out that they've been fooled. She will have them with this dangling carrot, like a carrot dangling in front of a donkey, going forever for this. And they never think, well, what happened to the last suspect that we were sure did it? Oh, it's not Jen McCabe? Oh, it's not one of the Alberts? They didn't even bother arguing Colin Albert. They weren't allowed. The fact that they were allowed to develop a third-party suspect in either one of these trials, which essentially, because we had such a weak judge, let them argue third-party culprit in the weakest way possible. The fact that they were allowed to even develop that, which means argue it in this case, it just is a testament to what a terrible Judge Canoni is. You are not supposed to be allowed to bring something into court of which there is no evidence. They were supposed to develop evidence. What evidence is there that anyone else did this crime? Just don't think this is ever this is Karen Reed's new identity. She said she wants to, she studied this movement, and she's going by the playbook. I said she would sue civilly if she got a favorable verdict in any way. But, there is a kind of odd thing that nobody's talking about, is that she was convicted of driving drunk. So when she wants to say that her civil rights were violated, it's a little bit of a problem there. She was driving drunk and she was convicted of it. People forget that. So I don't know how she's going to say her civil rights were violated. How does that work, Brendan? I don't know. My point is that she's saying that she was wrongfully confined by being put in jail before she was bailed out. That's what usually those suits are about, is wrongful confinement. Maybe she has an issue with Proctor sharing information on an investigation, but most of that was, I believe, in the public domain. So I don't know, or personal information. Some of it wasn't. Maybe she can get him on that. I don't know. But as far as Buchanan, I don't think she has any claim. And anyone else that's on the list as long as your arm of people she wants to sue. So I don't think she's going to get very far with this civil suit. But the point is to attach it to this case so that she can be both a plaintiff and a defendant, both a victim and a defendant, right, in her own case, and really mix it all up, just the way she's always done it. Mix it all up, bring in other personalities, mix it all up, deflect attention away from herself.
No idea. No idea. I mean, I guess if there's ever a time I was thankful she got convicted on anything, it would be now, because I agree. She just, and we other people asked. The bottom line is she was found not guilty. That doesn't mean she was innocent. We know all the, in hindsight, all the issues with the jury, and did Hank do a great job with the presentation of the case? I thought he did a good job, but we lost that case at the jury selection. We did not have a chance. Not a chance.
No, but even with that jury, I mean, you look at those jurors. I mean, so, this is where Turtle Boy says, well, there was like 12 jurors and they were all totally untouched by this innocence fraud campaign. I didn't poison the jury pool at all. It's not like we had a huge crowd of people outside the courthouse, all putting pressure on the jury till as they were deliberating. It wasn't like that. I mean, it was like just totally in a vacuum. They just looked at the case totally like completely untouched by the huge amount of innocence fraud propaganda, and the fact that they could, and it wasn't like we had a jury foreman who tried to get rich and other jurors who tried to springboard careers off of being jurors on this case. Little mini careers. One nightmare juror after the next. I thought some of the first jurors, one joined Karen Reed's legal team, was pretty awful. Allison, my father's alibi. Hi, Allison. I've been thinking about you and your mother's case, Nancy Galvani, the cold case of Nancy Galvani. Hope things are going well with that. Give me an update as soon as you know anything. Thanks so much. Check out her channel, My Father's Alibi. Back to Brendan Kane. If you're just tuning in, we're listening to my interview with Brendan Kane, John O'Keefe's childhood friend, and friend till when he was clipped by Karen Reed in her Lexus and left to die in the second worst snowstorm that area of Massachusetts had ever seen. But this jury was some of the most, just completely, had criminals in their family, were just like totally, but even they couldn't fully absolve Karen Reed. They still convicted her of drug driving. As much as they wanted to my point was that they were partial to criminals, that there were people in that case who were jurors on that case who had tweeted innocence fraud narratives, hated the government, hated the police, were very familiar with Karen Reed's innocence fraud campaign. Pressure of the entire, huge mass of people outside saying free Karen Reed, totally absolve her. They couldn't totally absolve her. They're like, look, she was driving drunk, and they could have given her 2 years in prison, which I still don't understand why Hank Brennan didn't, at least even as a token. With Canoni, you're not going to get far. She's a innocent fraudster judge, in my opinion. But you're not going to get far with that. But at least as a token, some kind of token that you're, he just completely just put his tail between his legs and folded at the end there. I don't understand why he didn't push for 2 years in prison, which she could have gotten just for the drunk driving charge, because it resulted in a death. So, once again, it looks like Karen Reed has amassed these lawyers, has started early on defending herself in this civil case. It seems like way ahead. And once again, we're looking at in this case, it's the plaintiff side, a little bit flat-footed. They didn't have any of the paperwork. They haven't started deposing people. What do you feel? How do you feel? Do you know anything about the plaintiff's legal team?
Just Mark Diller. Mark Diller was around sporadically throughout the criminal trials, and frankly, I thought they did a pretty good job yesterday.
I did too.
But it's just par for the course, though. It's essentially the position of the defense yesterday was springing things on the court again. And again, no paperwork has been filed. The judge said that 3 times. This is like a pre-trial kind of, he said, a tracking report to kind of lay out the timeline and the range of when a trial could happen. He said that the court's ready to go in the spring, but clearly listening to what both sides said yesterday, there's no way that's going to happen. So this will get dragged out yet again, maybe till early 2027, I think was stated yesterday. But I think Attorney Diller did a pretty strong job yesterday. Of at least I did not know what to expect. I'd met him in person, but I'd never seen him in court. But I thought he was pretty strong.
I thought so too. And why is John's family suing? I mean, my understanding is that I think we were talking yesterday, and you said they don't need the money. If they don't need the money, why are they putting themselves through this? I mean,
the suit itself, again, like that, there should be a financial recourse for the loss of a son and a father figure and a guardian. So on that side, but I think frankly, I think it's more important that on some level, in some way, even if it's in civil court, kind of akin to OJ, they still want justice. They want her to be held accountable in some official capacity for what she did. And we know what happened the first 2 times in the criminal efforts, and this is the kind of the last shot at getting anything quote unquote officially in court where she is found responsible. I think that's what's most important.
Yeah, and this is not unusual. I mean, this is the playbook of any innocence fraudster ever. I mean, it's not like she's not only not taking responsibility, she's saying she's a victim. She's the victim. And she told Natalie Bernschneider-Wawicki that she erased all of John's pictures. I mean, she's trying to literally erase John O'Keefe from the face of the earth. So, I mean, I just feel badly that everybody has to go through this, again.
She's done a good job, but people never speak ill of the dead. But I will tell you that the size of the network of folks that legitimately and genuinely love John O'Keefe, well, she can do whatever she wants to. That we will never lose his memory. He will always. There are so many people. There's constant discussions about what else can we do with a golf tournament. We're talking about doing something on December 8th would have been his 50th birthday. We're talking about that. This is not the support for the O'Keefe family has not waned. The one observation I wanted to share with you from yesterday was, obviously it's a media circus in Dedham during a criminal trial, and the one thing I did expect to see was there were no reporters in Plymouth yesterday, none. They were the TV reporters. So there's nobody interviewing outside. There were folks there were press in the courtroom, but it wasn't the kind of there was no cameras outside. Struggling with each other to try to get a quote from someone. I think they did interview Diller on the way out, but it was just far less of a circus than Dedham.
So were there just few, the no TV crews or just print crews?
When we walked in, there were no TV crews. I believe the TV crews had shown up later in the afternoon, and because I believe I saw Diller get interviewed on the way out, but it was not. It was a fraction of what we. I don't think there's any. There's definitely no national coverage. Remember, in Dedham with the civil case, you had Dateline there, and ABC National and NBC, and there was I saw the Channel 5, the ABC affiliate in Boston. They had a van in the parking lot, but that was the only media vehicle I saw. So it did seem to be muted. I know, as you've educated me, that the grift can go on forever, but the news cycle does roll on, and there has to be Karen Reed fatigue at some point, right? At least from the mass population perspective.
As long as she can make money. I mean, speaking of making money, I want to get back to the family in a second, but I mean, what did you think of her selling her story or getting movie rights and selling book rights? There must be Karen Reed fatigue, right? I don't know. You think just when you think it dies down, it comes back again. And I noticed that people support one innocence fraud case when it's not going anywhere, and they never give up. So sometimes you think like it's just gone. They'll come back with something else. It's like a monster you can't kill. So right now it looks like Stephen Avery's pretty beat, but you never know when they might come back with something else legally. Because these criminals never stop. As long as the courts allow them to go, they'll go. After, this is usually we're talking about post-conviction. And that Brendan made a good point. Why do her supporters care if she spends gives a tiny amount of money to the O'Keefes? Because for the Karen Reed supporters, the O'Keefes don't exist as real victims in this case. They're happy to disparage them, ghost them entirely. Free Karen Readers. There only can be one victim, and that's Karen Reed. So according to them, she owes the O'Keefes nothing. No one suffered, according to Free Karen Reed. The way the Karen Reed and her family has. And how traumatizing for Karen Reed. Remember how traumatizing for Karen Reed to have to sit through and listen to the O'Keefe family lawyer talk? That's what the Free Karen Readers are saying. I mean, we saw Karen Reed after that hearing. Does anybody remember Karen Reed after this hearing? Laughing it up with her lawyers, joking around. There's no trauma. She wasn't traumatized when she looked at the autopsy pictures. She's not traumatized listening to the plaintiff's lawyer. The O'Keefes, she doesn't feel badly for the O'Keefes. She's happy to have her mouthpiece call them names, scream at them. She's never publicly told her supporters to respect the O'Keefes. It all works. It's all helpful to her. But I mean, let's look at Karen Reed being traumatized. Here's Karen being traumatized, so traumatized after listening to the O'Keefe family lawyer.
Poor girl. So you need the whole change in tactic, right?
I think we're a little offensive during the criminal trial.
Cracking jokes. No one says that her affect is off. This is all concerning her murdered boyfriend. Even if, for the sake of argument, though I think it's obvious that Karen Reed's the one responsible and there's no one else, and no one else will ever be convicted for this crime because they had one chance to convict the killer or be even indicted for this crime. Even if, okay? We don't, this affect, this is not the O'Keefe's affect, not anyone else who was around John O'Keefe. Affect going into court. Duper's delight. She got away with it.
I need a full back.
Y'all don't need to let her get a blocking back.
And no, her demeanor is not. And don't tell me that everyone reacts differently. Killers all seem to have this glib, superficial charm and happiness around this issue of person close to them's murder. Isn't that odd? This poor Karen, I just hated watching her have to listen to the O'Keefe family talk about an orphan who's been orphaned. Mothers died all before she ever turned 16. Her mother died, her father died, and then her uncle was murdered. Oh, God. She's not the victim. It's Karen Reed. It's Karen Reed. How dare she have to have her lawyers paid for, be made into the Queen of Massachusetts and be made very rich off of her murder. What trauma she's going through. Poor Karen Reed. He could be you. Really? Really? Right, back to Brendan Kane's interview. This is like ridiculous, these interviews with Karen Reed. Writes to her story, so we're going to get the Karen Reed movie in addition to the Karen Reed book.
We fully expected it. 100%. Like whatever she can get, whatever project she can get money for to tell her fictitious story, we figured she would.
And was Turtle Boy there yesterday?
I didn't see him. I didn't look for him either, but I did not see him. It was a much, from what I again, it was a quick glance. I tried to just focus on what I focus on, which is what's going on in the courtroom. But it was an older demographic yesterday. I would say median age of her supporters is probably mid-60s. I didn't see all those young folks that happen to correlate with crowds on demand dates. I didn't see a single. I didn't see a single person under 60. So I mean, maybe that's why they have nothing else to do. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you would think. I mean, it's demanding getting to court and everything. I just have some thank yous. If you don't want me to thank you publicly, just let me know. Here's people who donated via Venmo to the channel. Jan says, Karen Reed and Donna Wendy. Hold on one second. Proud. They're proud. Proud of your work. Thank you very much, Jan. Marcy Denton, thank you so much. Carol, thank you. Great job, she writes. Jan, M, Diane, Tammy, Erin, Scott. Thank you all for your donations via Venmo. I appreciate it very much. If you'd like to support the channel, links, you can buy me a coffee. We hit the coffee people last episode. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, Venmo, Patreon, all great ways to support the channel. Links are in the description of this and every episode. I mean, speaking of, I mean, how is John's family holding up? I mean, are they? Someone's asking about Paul specifically, and Irene is asking about Paul. How are they doing?
I mean, the best I can say is that they're doing the best they can under the circumstances. There are children to focus on, which I think is a kind of a welcome distraction. But so, Mrs. O'Keefe.
You've seen no emotion of innocence. We've seen a lot of emotion from Jen McCabe. She was talking about John O'Keefe on the stand. Carrie Roberts, same thing. Choked up, had to go to, does anyone remember her testimony? Had to go to the church in the hospital and pray. They're traumatized by what he looked like. And none of them jumped on John O'Keefe immediately and lifted up their shirt like Karen Reed did. Everyone recognized that he was deceased. But only Karen had no fear and jumped on him and lifted up her shirt and lifted up his shirt and jumped on him. Didn't clear off his air, didn't even dig his head out of the snow. Everything she did was for herself. From the minute she woke up, she got no help for John O'Keefe, which, if you've been following true crime, is a sign of the person that did it. Person that calls 911 asking for help for themselves and not for the victim. It's a big red flag for the FBI. It's not what makes me think she did it. It's just one piece. It's all the evidence that all goes towards Karen Reed. Strangely, human behavior is on a spectrum of normalcy, but strangely, so you can be very stoic to very hysterical. Karen Reed acted very hysterical. She was able to pull it back in a second. Nobody ever saw any tears from Karen Reed to this day. So she's screaming people's names. Carrie, Jen. Why? To keep them in a fear state, create a chaos at the scene, and distract attention from her crime. The reason Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe stayed calm is because when you're on a scene like that, first of all, they're in shock. They're in real shock. They're in real trauma. And they want John O'Keefe to get help. Everything they did was to get him help. Or to help Karen. To be helpful. Everything Karen Reed did was to deflect attention away from herself and act as if she was in shock and surprise at the crime that she led everyone right to. I mean, these free Karen Reed people, you're going to be the last ones to know you're fooled.
Still the primary for Johnny's niece and nephew, and then Paul has two beautiful nieces of his own, two beautiful daughters of his own, that are two of my favorite kids, to be completely honest with you. They're just awesome people, all four of them. So then they're all very busy. They're all very active. They all play sports. So I think that that normal life has it'll never return to where it was prior to the murder, but I feel like they've been able to do the best they can under the circumstances and make things as normal as possible for their kids.
So Eva is asking, I can answer this, but isn't that interesting that the kids that she was a mother figure or a parental figure to, she's made no contact with? It's not... Here's Brendan Kane. He's taking Patrick to ball games and being involved in his life. But Karen Reed wants nothing to do with the O'Keefe families. Never, okay, she had a stay away order, but that's gone. Never gotten in touch with them, never checked in with them, and never expressed her sorrow for John O'Keefe's passing. You guys think this is normal? I'm not going to go through all of this, but just the main drag of this interview. Excuse me. If the O'Keeffes win the civil suit, can she still profit over a movie and book deal? What do you know about that, Brendan?
I think you know more. That's a Son of Sam law, right? I think that's a Son
Those
of Sam
Son
law.
of Sam laws were totally destroyed by. So I didn't explain this very well. I'm going to move past this section, but I'll try to explain it more clearly right now. So the Son of Sam law, when the book called Wise Guys by Nick Pileggi wanted to be turned into a movie, which it eventually was, and that movie was entitled Goodfellas, and it was directed by Martin Scorsese with Robert De Niro, etc. in that cast. So it was based on the criminal career of Henry Hill, who was a small-time mob guy in New York and New Jersey. He was active. They couldn't do it because of Son of Sam laws. So the publishing company challenged those Son of Sam laws and won. But even in states where they haven't successfully challenged the Son of Sam laws, where those Son of Sam laws still stand, they rarely get enforced. They really are like so much of victims' rights sit as like a token law to victims. Our victims and victims' families are treated not half as well as criminals and their family in our justice system.
Civil decision made. Did I think they'll ever get any money out of her? I have no idea. They move things to offshore accounts. I mean, you know, she and her father work for Fidelity. They're not dumb people. They know what to do with money.
It's a really good point. This is why she's, like I said before, any money she gets, she's moving around, hiding, making sure that it can't be gotten to by any kind of lawsuits. This is all the things that O.J. Simpson did. This is how he ended up in prison, is he was trying to steal back, he says. He had his Heisman trophies and all the stuff, he says, or whatever, his sports memorabilia stolen from him, and he was stealing it back. But that's, anytime you point a gun at someone and say you can't leave, that's kidnapping legally. And the laws are very strict in Nevada where he did it. So that's why he got so much time for that. But he was looking for income for himself, income that couldn't be traced, for other people to sell his memorabilia on the memorabilia market with him as the seller, the silent seller. So he did all sorts of things to hide his money, and I'm sure Karen Reed's doing the same stuff. Putting it in different accounts that it's really her money, but different names attached to it. Well, however you do it. She's a finance whiz. I am not. I'm sure but that is why she's not buying another home. If she does buy another home, I would predict it would be near her good friend. Oh my gosh, whose name escapes me. I can see her face. It was attended the trial in Sarasota, Florida. I'm sure she'll buy a home near there or somewhere in Florida.
So again, at this point, I have the most positive hopes that as I did for the last 3.5, 4 years, but my expectations are admittedly zero at this stage. We were failed by so many layers of government and policing. And
Ingrid Curtis is who I was thinking of. Sorry, it just took me a minute. Ingrid Curtis, my friend Ingrid Curtis. It's where I think she was going when they had warrants out for her phones, and they watched her phones go to Florida, Sarasota, Florida. Delay the getting
judge,
over
and
phones.
it's like, even though it's really tough because we know what happened, we followed the evidence in an objective fashion, and we did not get justice. So how can I expect to get an objective jury in a civil case that just got moved over one county when we frankly weren't able to get an objective jury twice in a criminal case? So if I'm being reasonable and rational, I'll be there to support the family until I'm dead, but my expectations are really low. I don't think people can deal with more disappointment.
Right. Expectations are a down payment on disappointment. Have you heard that?
Yeah, exactly.
So yesterday there was kind of a remarkable back and forth between the lawyers about Kaylee. I know you're closer with Patrick. We'll talk about that in a second, but they're saying that Kaylee is not due any kind of financial reward for pain and suffering because Karen Reed didn't run over John O'Keefe in front of her. I mean, and she hid her crime, and I thought that when Diller was strongest, he had two really strong moments, I thought, in court. One was when he talked about the relationship between Karen Reed, and basically he was talking about innocence fraud and Turtle Boy, and how she's basically put pressure on the courts from outside, and she's moved, the court of public opinion into our courts. And the second was when he was talking about her going back to John O'Keefe's home, not her home, going in sneaking in like a burglar, and starting to, and what he said was plot and plan her cover up right there in his home where she's an uninvited guest at that point. He didn't say, he said, come stay with us for the weekend. It's going to be a storm. But he didn't say, after you murder me, you're welcome to come into my home and start to plan your cover up. I mean, she's an uninvited guest at that point. The fact that she hid her crime for hours is now suddenly Kaylee can't. Yeah, that's a good phrase, uninvited guest. I would say a better way of putting it is that she's an intruder in his home. Uninvited guest. I mean, that says that she's a guest. I mean, unwanted guest. She's an intruder in his home, plotting out her murder. Why didn't she go to her house? Can't be traumatized because she wasn't informed till hours after. I thought that was a remarkable, really probably pretty stomach-turning argument. How did you feel listening to it?
Yeah, it was disgusting. I also did think that was Diller's strongest moment. The other piece that he made clear was that, for better or for worse, over the previous 18 to 20 months, Karen had served as some form of maternal figure in that household. She knew full well what the kids had been through, losing both of their parents. So, Diller's point that knowledge of, maybe fragility or having gone through such trauma prior to her murdering her uncle is an important facet where knowing this, she still woke her up, shook her awake, and said, he got hit by a plow, he's dead, maybe I hit him with my car. Is the defense assertion to me again is absurd. To me, again, public sentiment's one thing, but if the civil trial, which has the ability to get more people to actually see the truth, and you and I have talked about the many examples of innocence fraud in the past, and the fact that Amanda Knox is still perpetuating, and Adnan Syed and all these other examples of things that have been produced as not not guilty doesn't mean innocent. That more people will finally be able to see the truth. Like, wait a minute, they missed that in the criminal trial, and they didn't know this or didn't know that. And I frankly, I thought Diller made a couple points yesterday that were really strong, kind of underlined reiterations of things that had come up in the criminal trial that make absolutely no sense. And it starts with her waking up Kaylee.
Right. And she goes into the room and she shakes her awake and she leaves. What a horrible way to be woken up. And then she comes in and she says, and strangely, Karen Reed's the only one who knew something horrible had happened to John before anyone else. But I mean, here's Karen Reed had written Aiden via, the mediator, Natalie Bernschneider Week. You can listen to her interview on my channel in the video section. But she had written Aiden. We had looked at Laura Sullivan, the Sullivan sisters. Laura Sullivan was on the Aruba trip, and Karen Reed accused John O'Keefe of kissing her younger sister by 10 years, Marietta, on that trip. But Karen Reed's writing, "That's my beach bag in front of that pig." So she's calling Laura Sullivan a pig. And then she goes on to say, John's family sucks. Please tell Turtle Boy he will get all the credit for my camp when this blows up. And when I talk to Dateline next, can you tell him that Laura Sullivan is not a friendly? She testified against me. She's the fat ass in blue crying in court while Jen McCabe rubs her back. So that's some of the not innocent. I mean, everyone's traumatized by this, but Karen Reed. I mean, these people aren't, it's not like I'm finding borderline cases. I mean, to me, these are pretty overwhelming. How did, microscopic pieces of Karen's taillight end up embedded in John O'Keefe's shirt? I mean, they've not been able to prove any kind of, and also, I mean, just the whole timeline with the car already on the way to the Sally Port when the CERT team's arriving and finding, Tina. Let's deal with you, Tina. Hold on, Tina. I'll get you up. The conclusion is it didn't happen, and the evidence shows otherwise. So how far? The conclusion by ARCA, you say. It's ARCA. So are you saying that the witness that lied on the stand about being paid, the witness, one of two witnesses that communicated via signal and deleted all the discovery material and that only got material from the defense, that lied about being paid by the defense and said that they were impartial witnesses on the stand, so that perjured themselves in the first trial, and that communicated via the defense via signal on auto delete, that they presented opinion that was consistent with Karen Reed's defense. Isn't that a shocker? Isn't that a shocker? Do you understand what a hired gun is? A hired gun for the defense? La Posada too. Strangely, ARCA presented since we don't know John's position also, where he was exactly when he was hit, it's hard to prove exactly what happened. But we do know that microscopic pieces of John O'Keefe's taillight were pulled out of John O'Keefe's shirt, and there was no opportunity to plant any evidence in this case. Karen Reed's car was already on the way to the Sallyport when the CERT team arrived. Karen Reed's missing taillight is on film that morning on the wellness check before anyone knew anything had happened to John O'Keefe besides Karen Reed. Pieces of Karen's taillight. I mean, there's no time to plant anything.
So then I'll tell you this too. So Hank Brennan wound up not using it. He went with Aperture's approach, which, okay. But following the first trial, to his credit, Adam Lally, there's a core of us that were at court quite a bit. 15 to 20 of us were in rotation, and mainly Johnny's family and 3 or 4 of his closest friends. And
but one person did see something, but didn't recognize it as a body. Julie Nagel saw something and thought it was odd, but you're not looking for a body on the lawn. But there was one person who did see something when no one else did. Karen Reed led everyone back to John O'Keefe's body.
a couple of our buddies are actually lawyers, so they had even better perspective. But as we sat through and listened to every word of the trial after the first trial and the hung jury, Adam Lally had asked us, what do you guys have for us? Like, we're willing to listen. And I'm fairly vocal. I said, I'll go. I said, what he hadn't done in the first trial, which was I believe still the contention of the defense, which is that she cracked her taillight on Johnny's Traverse backing out in that infamous court TV ring video where she bumped the bumper. There was never, in the first trial, Trooper.
How do you plant microscopic pieces of taillight? How do you plant that? Again, it's microscopic pieces of taillight. How do you plant that?
The height of the bumpers. There was never a picture, video. I was like, can we get a picture and some video to show that that's not possible? And to Lally's credit, 2 days later, we did that. We brought Johnny's Traverse down to a state police barracks parking lot, and we recreated the Lexus backing out from both angles, frankly, because the right side of the taillight was gone.
Tina, I've been bit by a dog. The dog had no lower jaw. They couldn't make any kind of patterns or there's no dog DNA. And they couldn't actually show any patterns that resembled the dog. A witness who volunteered herself to the defense, who wanted to start a career as a dog bite expert. Her expertise is bite and hold, never testified in any case about dog bites before. Got some money to testify that it was. Unfortunately, Hank Brennan never put out his experts. That negated it. He thought it was already a proven point. Clearly not. But this is just ridiculous. I've been bit by a dog. They do not bite that way. They don't just kind of scratch your arm that way. When they bite down and they rip. You can clearly see the outlines of it. As someone who had was bitten by a dog and had to wait hours with ice on my face. First, my mom rushed me bleeding, like you could see through my freaking face, to the emergency room, and they wouldn't take me. Then they took me, I had to wait 8 hours with a glove filled with chopped ice on my face, waiting for a woman to get a facelift, for the plastic surgeon to stitch up my face. So when dogs bite, they do not bite like that. And believe me, they leave a lot of DNA. They're all over you when they bite you. They don't kind of bite. There's no bottom jaw on that dog. There's no.
At that point, because they had taken it for evidence to show, and we proved beyond a shadow of a doubt, as the bumpers are crunching into each other. You can hear on the video the bumpers crunching. There is a 2-inch gap between her taillight and Johnny's Traverse. It was physically impossible for that taillight to have ever made contact with his car. Again, Monday morning quarterbacking, and I'm not an attorney, But looking back at trial 2, they went with the aperture version of that, and I frankly I think the Mass State Police had better video.
Do you think any of these people had anything against Karen Read that they wanted her to go down for this? There's any sign of anyone else doing this? Don't you think they wanted the right person convicted? I think I'm going to leave it there for now. I think this is, we've done, I think, the majority of this. Congratulations, free Karen readers. Like I say, you're going to be the last people to know you've been duped. Welcome to Innocence Fraud 101. All right, that's what I have for today, guys. Karen reads, mask is off. Is anyone noticing? Is anyone recognizing that they've been fooled? It's a tough road to wake up to realize that you've been fooled. Always is. I've definitely been fooled in life. And the only person who says they can't be fooled, that's the sucker. Okay, please support the channel. Links in the description of this and every episode. You can buy me a coffee, Venmo, Patreon, all great ways to support the channel. Please hit the thumbs up on your way out. Leave me a comment. Always get a lot out of your comments. I do read each and every one. Have a great night, everyone. I will see you back here tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow at 6 Eastern. Have a great night.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, Jen, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. Yeah. I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim.